Brooklyn has been through a lot. More lives than a cat would be to put one, but she still braves on. She has tremendous spirit. She still sees the power of the struggle and how you can turn it to good. She's an amazing woman, and this is her story. Good evening and welcome to another episode of A Cuppa with. I have a new tea to try today, an Irish breakfast tea. It's going down very, very nicely. But as you know, we're here to have a comfortable, cosy chat with people about what their story is. It's important that we have these stories, these open conversations, out the same way you would over a cup of tea with your neighbour. You do that with physical health, we'll do that with mental health too. Nothing is taboo here, everything is open. So I have a guest with me today. She'd like to introduce herself.
Hi, I am Brooklyn Adrian, and I'm so glad to be here.
Well, hello, and thank you for being part of this. So go straight into it. What's your story?
Well, let's see, my story. I am a creator and writer, and I create artwork centered around the demons of mental health. There is not an aspect of my life that is not touched by mental health issues in some way or another, not only from my experiences, but every single person in my life. So I have PTSD.
Okay.
I'm in recovery for alcohol and drug abuse. And I have not used drugs or drank alcohol or harmed myself in any way since 2016.
Hey.
July of 2016.
Nice
yes.
one.
And it took years to be able to get years.
Yeah.
So I'm also a caregiver for my grandmother who has dementia.
Okay.
And so those are pretty much my full-time jobs, creating and caregiving for my grandmother.
So you weren't wrong where it's saying it touches on every aspect of your life, are you?
Yeah, it's everywhere.
So you say you've not drank or self-harmed in going on to 3 years now. What was your turning point?
It's hard to say. The first time I was in rehab for alcohol was in 2013. And that was when I was able to also start some therapy for PTSD.
Yeah.
So over the years, I feel like there was just so many layers that were peeled off and then things coming together.
Yeah.
And so I would say really where I was the last day that I drank was I was ready to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And I actually pictured my children at my funeral.
Oh.
And I thought, I can give it one more try. I can give it one more try. And that was it. And I want to make it clear, I wasn't doing it for my children. Because all of the times in the past that I had done it, I was doing it for my children.
Yeah.
This time I was doing it for me. I knew that I could not exist feeling that way anymore.
Yeah.
And I was ready to try to love myself.
Yeah.
I was ready to be a person who didn't wake up and picture their children at their funeral. So, and I laugh
Fair
because
enough.
we've got to laugh now, and it's not who I am anymore or where I am, but, I honestly I don't think there was like a magical answer. It was an accumulation of time. So
that's the thing, is you touched on two key points I've always said with people is you can't do it for anybody else. You've got to do it for yourself. Because if that person goes and God forbid anything would happen to your children, then that the reason for you being would be gone. As well as, I mean, it's a bit harder to say when it comes to children, but I know a lot of people do it for partners and for loved ones and stuff like that. And I always think that if you're not doing it for you, there's always going to be a trigger that makes you relapse. You have to feel it completely within yourself. And I think a lot of people, I've heard so many people use the term, oh, you're my purpose, you're my reason. And if it's always external, then when that external reason either disappears for a bit or gives you aggro, because it's not settled with you internally, it's always going to be relapsing. It's always going to be, and that's a common theme I've seen with a lot of people, is if it's not internal. And also, it's never one big dramatic aha. It's always just a build, and then you just go right. And it always seems like it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's never just a pinnacle moment of wow, film moment, life turns around, put montage on, done and dusted. It's never that. It's always that accumulation of the little things, and then something small. In your case, was the vision of your children being by at your funeral. Now, I suppose that's not a small feat by anybody's image, but I'm sure you've seen and done things probably along those lines, and it took to that image in your head, which is just an image. And I'm sure you've seen plenty of things in your life that an image that came to your head that you'd imagined was your turning point. And it's always the small things.
Yeah, you're right on all accounts. And what's crazy is, when I was drinking, I often wished to die. I would wake up some mornings angry that I had made it through the night. But when I sat there in that moment and I actually was planning everything out, and then I saw what would happen after I left, it was definitely not small, and I've definitely been through a lot. But I really do feel like that something stirred inside me in that moment. And I just thought, I can do better. I have a lot to give to myself,
And you guys can't see this, but as she's saying it, her face is slowly, like the smile's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's when you know somebody's completely resonated with a purpose and who they are. Is when they talk about it, their face can't stop from going Joker-esque.
It's true. I get emotional.
Hey, get emotional. Well, I'll see if I can throw you a tissue from over here. But
I've come prepared.
Oh well, have you listened to my podcast before? Have you come prepared?
Indeed.
If you don't mind me asking, how did you get onto alcohol abuse and self harm? How did it get to that point?
Actually, so I started drinking alcohol when I was 10 years old. I come from a family of very heavy drinkers.
Okay.
Now, I will say disclaimer that, I definitely have a lot of story about my family. And there are a lot of people in my family who have changed over the years. Yeah. But back then, when I was 10 years old, alcohol was accessible to me. Yeah. Not just as a rebel, but people made it accessible to me. And so it wasn't actually, though, until I guess I don't remember how old I was, but in any case, I was raped by several men at once, and after that's when the spiral started.
Oh, that's
so it was already part of my life, but I was a young mother with 3 children and a failing marriage at that point, and I essentially had no one to talk to. I didn't want to tell anybody what had happened. So that was, I say, the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the black hole.
Yeah.
So I'm very sorry you've had to go through that. Nobody should ever have to experience that. But it is quite a scarily common thing. I won't go touch on the whole. I'll only touch on the whole rape culture and all that lot because it's a big enough issue within itself. But it's shocking to me how many people. It's the vulnerables that are taken advantage of and end up being in that situation. And that makes me even sadder. That somebody who is in a vulnerable situation as it is generally the one that is taken the most advantage of, which also frustrates me because people's view of what mental health is, and people think that it's mental health that could be the ones that have danger. Oh no, they've got mental health issues, they're going to be a danger to us. And generally the people with mental health, as proven in your case, are more likely to be the ones that are harmed.
Correct.
And the statistics on it are only just in the UK statistics. I don't know what they are over your end, but they're quite alarming. If anybody wants to look it up, go to Mental Health Foundation. They give you all the statistics of mental health within the UK, and you'll be able to see it for yourself. Please don't be surprised if your jaw drops. I'm just saying. But it is that one of those things that the vulnerable are generally the ones that are taken advantage of. What was the time difference between that happening and you entering the black hole before you came out the black hole?
Let's see. It was 2011 when I started spiraling, and then my first time in treatment was 2013. So 2016. Now, it was 2 years before I was able to even say out loud what had happened. Yeah. So 2011, everything happens, and I actually ended up running away.
Okay.
An adult with 3 children, disappearing. I took off. Yeah. And so then I went into treatment. And while I was there, I told one of the counselors what had happened, and they highly suggested seeing a therapist for PTSD. And I did amazing work with him.
Yeah.
Now, I had suffered a lot of abuse as a child.
Yeah.
And so I'm really glad that you bring up the statistics about the people with, mental health issues are more likely to be victims. And that is so true. And I think that one of the biggest reasons, of course, we're more empathetic. Of course, we're more codependent. Of course, we're more, less self-esteem.
Yeah.
But then also there's that factor that nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so you are the easier victim because nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody's going to believe the alcoholic who comes into the police station and says this happened, because then they're like, well, what were you doing?
Yeah.
And so you're right, it is a bigger subject, but I just really wanted to put that out there, that I hope that we do start talking about it more as not like I'm an alcoholic and I'm a victim, because I was a victim. Yeah. I am no longer a victim.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I had to get somebody to, it took having people in my court, people rallying for me before I could understand that.
Yeah.
So
when you've lost all belief in yourself, all it takes is one voice. It literally, when you've lost all belief in yourself, all it takes is one voice, and then that's it. Because if you feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall, you're just like, well, what am I supposed to do? And you've lost all belief in who you are. And if you've got to that point and nobody believes you, what's the point of speaking? What's the point of anything? Like, does my existence even have a value if I'm talking about something that truly hurt me and nobody is listening, nobody cares, and then you get that one person that validates your feelings. They might not know what you've gone through, they might not understand, but they validate that your feelings are correct because they're what you're going through. That nothing else. They don't have to know the rest of the story. They don't even need to know half of what's gone on. But as soon as they go, you're allowed to feel what you feel, and you can talk to me, and I might not understand, I might not be able to take in, I might not even be able to help, but I have 2 ears, and the best I can do at this present moment is validate you by listening. And people don't understand the power that has to help people. For me, I've been in situations where my mother was a gambling addict, and I've spoken about this openly, and I was very much always felt like I was never listened to on the simple fact of this, because it was just easier to go, you know, Lynn's being over dramatic again, because I was the youngest and I was a girl, and I was like, you know, if I was, she would set me up to take the blame, or like say if she'd run up another debt, she'd set up something really crappy for me to get the blame with. I'd say it wasn't my fault and stuff like that. So, and I was pushed down to the point where I wasn't validated, and it wasn't until somebody came along and went, actually, let me listen to you. And it came in weirdly enough, it came in the form of my nana, who was finally ready to listen to what her daughter had been doing to her granddaughters. So it was just like, and that's when the validation came. And it's so strange to think that all it took was a set of ears. Well, don't matter if it comes from your nan, don't matter if it comes from a perfect stranger. All it takes is a set of ears, preferably with a cup of tea, but a set of ears, because once your feelings are validated, that's the most relieving feeling in the world. It's like somebody has literally just lifted that house off your shoulders and go, there you go, we're going to put it down over there for just 5 minutes. You can pick it up in a minute, but the weight of the world is off your shoulders for 5 minutes while we get this sorted out and start somewhere. And you're right, like they're saying, all it takes is somebody just to listen. So how did you feel when somebody started to finally validate you?
I will say that it was relieving. It was terrifying. And, you know, I had lived in this world where I didn't feel worthy for so long.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that I had been living a life that asked for people to harm me. And so there was a lot of having to break that down, and there was parts of me that didn't want to let it go at first. And it wasn't even a conscious thing.
Yeah.
It was there was comfort in the mistreatment. There was comfort in all of that. And
better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Exactly. Yes. Suddenly having suddenly having a new world is terrifying. And so yeah, I'm just, as we're talking, I'm thinking of all of the years that I went through therapy and you know, went back to drinking, and there was just so much. There was so much. I truly believed for most of my life that I was created solely for like the pleasure of men. Okay. And so it took years to break that down, to understand that that was not why I was put on this earth. And so when I finally was able to say that out loud to somebody, funnily enough, it was a man, because my therapist was a man. It was freeing and also scary, just so scary.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's so crazy to go back and just see how different my mind worked then, because now I can't imagine thinking and feeling that way anymore. But also, I'm in a place where I'm surrounded by people who mirror that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could not sit here and have a conversation with you and even believe that I was created for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I don't know if I answered your question. I feel like I spun a circle.
Various directions, we'll see where they take us. But yeah, it's when you do look back, it's a strange one, because you don't tend to look back often. But when you do, you're just like, you knew how you got there, but you still didn't know how you got there.
Right. Yeah.
It's the best way to put it. It's like, you knew the exact steps of what happened. Like, you've been through it all. You've been through every therapist, every counsellor, every CBT, mindfulness, all this lot. I'm just telling you my bit, because I can only speak from mine. And you know exactly, you lived that life, you went through it, you know exactly how you got there. And then you're like, but how did I get there?
Yes.
And then when you look back now, you're like, but that's not even, that person is not even a microbe of what I am now. It's like, and I lived that life for so long.
Yeah.
If that's just the tiny shell of who I was, it's amazing to see the difference. Like, I don't look back very often, unless I'm talking about stories that I feel will help. But it's one of those where I look back and I'm like, shit, how the hell? Like, it's just like, did I go through all that? It feels like a million miles away, like a million years, not even who it was. Like, somebody had cloned me and that's who I was, and now this is who I am now, and I don't associate with that person anymore. And the strange thing is I don't know how you feel about this, but if that you was to come at you now and try to be your friend, you'd have nothing to do with them. Because that's how I would feel. It's like, not in a sense of, I'm just gonna like push myself away, but the traits of the person that they had, I was a negative person. I had enough. I was a blatant victim. Poor me, little old me. Everything that's gone wrong, it always happens to me. Like, and many, many more things. And to be fair, as with you could be justified to say those reasons. Things had happened to you. Terrible things had happened to you. But knowing the mindset that terrible things have still happened, and you don't have that mindset anymore, means that the terrible things that happened then, you didn't need to have that mindset, but you needed that support to understand what your feelings were.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, so the terrible cycle that I was in before was, I was a victim, so I continued to seek out that validation that I was a victim. So I just continued to be a victim. Yep. And I wouldn't be friends with myself per se. In recovery, we make room in our lives to help people who are going through, there was people who helped me through what I went through. So now I help others go through that. But there's no room in my life for anybody to be a victim around me. That's for absolute sure. Because I how do I say this?
Just say it.
I'm too busy. I'm too busy not being a victim anymore. Yeah.
That's the nice way I can put it. No, just fucking say it. It's fine. Honestly, just say it.
It's so funny because so a lot of the work that I did in therapy was like the inner child.
Yeah.
And I just remember the first time that I sat with my therapist and he asked me to picture the child inside me in the room with us, and it was life-changing for me, because my attitude before was I didn't want to listen to that voice. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. I wanted to just pretend like all of that shit never happened. But by being able to sit down and tell that inner child, like, hey, it's okay, like, we're not there anymore, we don't have to go through this anymore, and building a relationship with that child. So that's a lot of where my work comes from now. All my creative stuff is I sit down with the demons inside of me. We sit down and we have a cup of fucking tea every day. And we're like, you're there, but the crazy thing is they actually see the world differently. And I say they, yes, there's so many voices and
it's never just one.
things in my head.
There's never just one.
But yeah, so it's hard to like have this attitude that I wouldn't have time for myself, but I wouldn't have time for myself.
It's true. It's like, if I was to take away everything that happened to me, just if I was just to go on traits of the person and their character and who they was as a person, I'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, come on, you've gone for all this just to keep planted in the same place. Like, so you've survived to breathe, that's it. You've survived all that just to breathe. And I'm not saying that people haven't gone through crap. I'm not saying that people aren't justified to have these demons that they sit down with and have a cup of tea. But if you're forever sitting with them and allowing them to win, you're never going to move on from where it was. And I think the key in that, and I think you said it as well, is accepting those demons. People think they should be fighting them, and it's like, no. Yeah. These demons are now you. You're never going to get rid of them. So if you're never going to get rid of them, it's like you've been bit by something. If you're forever scratching at it, it's never going to heal. It's just going to get more and more and more infected. Stop itching it, accept it, and it'll dull itself down. If you're forever fighting what is now always going to be a part of you, you are never going to be fully accepting of yourself. Once you go, this demon is me, this demon is me, and this part of my character is pretty shitty, but they're all what make me me, and I acknowledge them and I accept them, but it's not who runs the show. I know I have these potential things that could happen, but I don't allow them to run the show. I know these crappy things have happened to me, but I don't allow them to run the show. This is my choice. That's what people did to me. I'm going to choose to be me, not what the actions of what they've done to me. Like, and including the stuff that you might have done yourself. These were the actions of past me, not who I am today. And once you've accepted every aspect of it, and it's a hard process, and I'm sure you know that one, it's a hard process, sitting down and talking and accepting every single demon. I've done the same, not in the same way you have, but I did do the accepting of the inner child, although mine was a teenager. And I had to accept her and sort of like give her an inner cuddle, because she was forever lonely. She just wanted to be accepted. And I had to literally gave myself a hug. You know, when you literally just wrap your hands around yourself and you literally, and I absolutely cried my eyes out for about half an hour, because I'd never realised like where that turning point was at 13, when everything just went boom. My whole world changed, and I was just like, the only reason was because it built up. Because I'd gone through life just wanting to be loved, and I wanted
Right.
the cuddle. And then it was then realising that my parents never once told me they loved me. I know, my mum told me twice that she loved me. In the entirety of my growing up, twice, and once was to recover after my stepdad had got violent. So it was just like, so you have to take that inner child and go, right, come on, kid, let's have this conversation and speak to yourself like you were that person again. And I found the turning point was when I gone from turning it from you to I. When you're speaking to yourself, you go, well, I started talking off as, well, you, I know how you feel, you was like this, and I went, no, I felt like this, I went through this, but that's who we were together. Now I am this person, and I have to let those go. And I think once you take the I, once you use the I, you make it yours, you make it centered into you. And it also, that's where the acceptance comes from, because you is third party. You know, third person, you over there, I'm not having to deal with you, you know, I know that you're there, but that's something else. If you go I, you're taking it in, you're making it literally, I for internal, like literally taking it in onto yourself.
Yeah.
And I think anybody should, if you're having issues, write a letter to your child self. A point where you thought it was turning point. For me, it was 13 was a massive turning point for me. So, for my experiences, was writing to a 13, 14-year-old girl. For anybody else, it could be when they were 6. I did also do one for when I was 6. It's quite weird. Once you start doing one, you start realising these turning points, and you're like, oh, what about this one? And then you really take it in, and then that's where it starts. That's where your process starts. You heal the old and make way for the new.
Yeah, it's definitely peeling back, and you know, like on this side of it, it seems like so easy. Yes, I've got to start taking my power back, but on, you know, before, that's part of it, right? Is that you can't really see that the power lies within you. You've been told for so many years that the power is not within you. And I remember, for me to really understand my PTSD, because it started for me as a child, it was actually, and still is, it's the primal part of my brain that has taken over. So when there is something that makes me feel threatened, I won't even realize that on a conscious level, my brain will start telling my body I'm in danger.
Yeah.
And now I'm in this mental battle where I'm like, well, that's silly. You're just driving down the road alone in the car. Like, you're not in danger. And it's so, on this side, I can see all of that. I can see why that happened, or why that happens. But when I was there, there was no way that I could see. And then especially when you add the what other abuse you're adding into your life, because you're playing the victim, the alcohol and the drugs. It's so hard to see that you have the power within you. And quite honestly, facing all of that was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about the dark night of the soul, which I don't know if you feel like you've experienced that, but that was the hardest thing. And one of the things that we say in recovery for alcohol is that we're grateful to be alcoholics. And when I first heard people saying that, I was like, you're fucking crazy. You are not grateful to be an alcoholic. You're a liar. Yeah. But on this side of it, I actually am grateful, because as an alcoholic, I did have, like, alcohol was literally killing me. Yeah. I was okay with that, but there was still some sort of survival that kicked in at some point where my body finally was saying, oh my God, you've got to actually change or you're actually going to die. It was a survival thing. And there's so many people who don't have that, who have other addictions or who live with other mental illnesses, and they don't have that survival that kicks in and says, hey, you've got to take a look at this. And then it's easier to not take a look at it.
Yeah.
You know, because it's comfortable there.
Yes.
It's uncomfortable, but it's comfortable.
Yeah. You know it, don't you? You know the routine, you know what comes, you know your leaps and bounds with it. You don't... I mean, I completely understand that. And the whole... it's very close to what I've been saying to myself is, I'm very grateful for my struggles.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so grateful for my struggles. Like, I found out I was 6, nearly 7 months pregnant at 17. So I had a child young. She's gonna be 16 in a few days. Like, I've gone through gambling with my mother. I've gone through breakups and much more that I've nearly died. I've gone through all this stuff. But if you took even one of those away, I wouldn't be the person I am now.
Yeah.
And I am so, like, people are like, oh, I'm in my 30s, I'm getting old. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm in my 30s. Yes. I was a twat in my 20s. Like, and nobody wants to know that. Like, I'm like, it's all come from, I'm so grateful for my struggles. Like, if it took that decade of my life to realise that you got to turn it around. You've got yourself into such a hole, and I'd got myself into, I dug a hole so deep I didn't even think I would ever find a way out. But I decided I was going to. And I don't know, I just thought, right, I've got to get out. So when I got out of my 20s and into my 30s, I was like, why are people whinging about maturing? Because, like, I'm loving this. Like, I'm absolutely loving it. Like, people are like, I'd love to go back to school. I'd love to be back in my 20s. Like, hell no. If you knew me then, you'd be like, nah, you're alright. I'll leave it alone. But it's like, it's one of those. But I'm so grateful for my struggles because I wouldn't be the person I am now. And so I completely understand when people say, oh, I was so grateful for my alcoholism. I've heard people say they're so grateful for their bipolar. Like, Stephen Fry is very much an advocate for that because he says without his bipolar, he wouldn't have had his... Yes, there's been times where he has tried to kill himself, but he's also had his most brilliant creative moments through bipolar and his experience and his empathy. Like, you gotta admit, I'm sorry, like, this is a generalisation, but I think it's a good generalisation. Anybody who has gone through mental health issues in some form of way and has come out the other side has one of the most deepest empathy feelings towards people you'll ever know.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely,
you know the lowest of the low. You know what that feeling is on the brink of deciding what is the point of life. And what is the point, not just what's the point of life, but what's the point of your life. And if you felt like that, your empathy towards people who feel like that is immense. Because you're like, no, we don't want you to feel like this. That's why we want you to come out of victim mentality. That's why because we don't want you to feel that way, because we know what it felt like to feel that way. Like,
And then to be able to be on this side and actually love myself, I think that's made me more beneficial to humans.
Yeah.
You know, is that not only do I know how low it can go, I know what it feels like to feel love for myself now, and there is nothing, I can't even describe it, but for me it is like, that's my purpose. My purpose is that I love myself.
Yep.
And now I'm actually able to properly love other people.
Yeah. You're right, because, like, you think back then, you're like looking at yourself like, I would have never been able to go, I'm awesome, And I love myself because I am mostly.
Right.
But now I couldn't think of myself as any other way. Like, don't get me wrong, I have my low days like everybody else. I kick, I scream, I cry. I've had enough of the world. It can all just go bugger off. But in general, I'm pretty awesome. Like,
yeah.
And what?
Yeah.
To be in that place, to know how low you can go and then how high you can be, it was catching people before they hit that low point. And that's why I do all this, because I think if we can keep catching people before they get to that low point, and it takes so little. It takes so little. Like, people think it should be this grand ta-da gesture. As we said, the snapping point for people is never a big thing, unless it is horrendous, and that's completely understandable. But generally the thing that changes is such a slow build that if all it took was somebody to listen or pay attention, we are so in our own heads we forget to look around. Like, when people talk to me, I love to watch their body language. I love to watch where their eyes go and stuff like that, because these are the signs that say more than what their words are. Because we've both done it. I know I don't want to speak for you, but we can both say we've lied about how we've felt at times.
Oh yeah, I'm fine.
I'll be sat there and I'm like, right, you're fidgeting, or you turned away, or your voice cracked on a word, and they're like, you weren't supposed to notice that. It's like, but in this moment, I am all yours. And I am all yours in this moment. If you've chosen to sit down and talk to me, and you need to talk to me, I am all yours. So, and I think that's the thing, is we get distracted by stuff like phones and stuff like that and all that. As well as, not just, people blame it on technology, it's bullshit. It's not technology, it's whenever we've been able, back in the day before there was phones, people would put up the newspaper to be in front of with something, or put the radio on. It's always been something to not pay attention. But if you really want to help people in their mental health, even if you only stare at them, like, don't like creepily stare at them, like, that's just a bit weird. But just actually pay attention to how their hands are. Like, there's an actual thing. I looked into this because I started to notice it, but I want to know the psychological stuff behind it, because I'm doing psychology. I find it absolutely fascinating. And our bodies react before our words do.
Yes.
So, and it's literally milliseconds, and because your body will physically react before the message has gone to your head of what's just gone on, for it to come out and go, right, what do I say, and then back out. For it, so you'll see somebody look surprised, and then within a second, but it was such a small millisecond. But that small millisecond will show you exactly what is going on, and it literally is because the message can't get, your body reacts faster than your, because if your body already takes it in as something that's threatening, whether it be mentally, physically, or just a threatening to your thought process, your body will immediately react to protect it. So you'll see them close off a bit, or you'll see them back a bit off, or you'll see them fidget when it's not correct, like, you know, when it's something that makes them anxious. And it's so amazing to watch. I always say to people, you know, in the moment that you're there, pay attention. Pay truly attention to the person, and not just what they're saying, but everything else about them, because I think it's important.
Absolutely. And I think that if you're a person who is too scared to look at yourself, you're probably not going to be asking other people how they're doing. I think that asking other people how they're doing, and then seeing that, because as that person has that millisecond response, it creates a response in the other person, and this discomfort, right? And it's like, oh, we're gonna all just say we're fine because I don't want to dig deeper.
We don't want to open that Pandora's box. We'll leave that.
Right. You're fine. I'm fine. Let's just to be fine together.
Yes.
But it is. It's. I think one of the things that I've really come to believe is that when we shine who we truly are, our bad days, our good days, it really gives others permission to do the same thing. And I think that that's exactly what you're touching on right now. Is when people see a messy and cussing and then, get through it, it's kind of like, oh, wow, I might be able to do that also.
Yeah. Because the thing is somebody is always a shield for somebody else. Doesn't mean to say that they don't get to be able to be themselves, but sometimes you just need it's okay, like I'm going through it too, or I've been through it, and just being that shield for somebody to have that courage to take that first step, I think is very much important. There's so much, and it takes so little. Like when you're being yourself and showing your story and shining in your own special snowflake way, it's like, because no two snowflakes are alike, so you've got to be, that's my favourite one, is be your special little snowflake way, because no two snowflakes are ever alike. So once you're able to do that and you be the brightest, biggest you, then other people will be attracted to that and then start to open up as well. Like I've started doing all this podcast because I wanted to speak about mental health. And then because of it, I've attracted so many people that just want to speak about mental health and not felt like they've had an outlet for it. And I'm like, they're like, well, we know there's outlets, but we don't know which one to go to, because there's like, wow, like, which one do we pick, and do we pick any, and then it becomes so overwhelming, and then let's face it, that's when anxiety kicks in, and then you're like, oh bugger it, I'm going home. But it's like, and as I say, I just love that all it takes, people think that being ordinary, and yes, I am using air quotes for this one, being ordinary is not going to change anything, but nobody is ever ordinary. It just looks like that to people who are going through stuff at the time. Like,
right. And
nobody thinks about themselves more than you do.
And it's always comparing your worst to somebody else's best.
Oh,
because
God,
whatever you see of somebody usually is the very best that they can give you that day.
Oh, God, yeah.
So if you are comparing your worst to their best, it's over.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing when people are like, oh, well, I've had a really bad day today, and you've had a really good one. You didn't see me half an hour ago crying in the corner because I couldn't find my sock. Like, literally. I've run out of milk for my tea and I'm screaming because I can't just manage my day without a cup of tea because I'm going to murder somebody otherwise. Like, and they're like, it's all these things like, oh, you don't see that. I was like, dude, you didn't see me do this, that, and the other. You only, because you can't see me 24/7.
Yeah.
You only see me when I allow you to see me. And that's the thing with mental health as well. We only see what people allow us to see. And if we don't speak up and say something, but we got to give them the space to be able to say it. So the comparing thing, bloody hell. I've seen it actually destroy people. I'm just like, no. And then but especially around mental health, because it's so easy for two people to have the same diagnosis. You cover enough ground, you're in the same bubble. Like, that's the thing.
Right.
Yeah, I've never heard a mental health story that was exactly the same. There might have been similarities and certainly similar traits of what's gone on or how they've managed it or protected themselves. That's a given. There's only so many options within this world of being able to protect yourself. But the effects it has on somebody, never alike. You can have the same diagnosis, but you can never have the same experience. Even if you had saw the same event. Somebody said this to me perfect. I think it was a lecturer at my uni. And he said, 2 people can see the exact same event at the exact same time, and they will still see something different. Even if you was to take out the experience, whether or not they enjoyed it or not, their angle is still different.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. I think that's amazing. I love that about people. I love that people are so different. I love that everybody will interpret everything differently. I love it.
That for me, that's the power of the mind. It holds so much. It holds so much.
Yeah, it can be our biggest enemy,
or our best friend,
our greatest, our greatest everything. Yeah. I don't know. I'm fascinated by it. I still think of all of the things that my brain has been through, my body's been through, and then like to be able to sit here and have this conversation with you now, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
You look back and like, I've got to this point. How? Like, by all standards, I shouldn't be here in this seat while I'm talking to you. But somehow I've managed to get to this point.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Well, we are coming to the end. So you say you create content as well around mental health. How can people find you?
So you can find me at 100 Ways to Me on Instagram. So that's 100_ways_to_me. And there you can find a link to my YouTube channels. I have a lot of projects coming up, and I'll have everything about all of that there.
And
that's my hub.
When I post it, I'll put all your links in as well, so it makes it easier for them as well. I always ask this question at the end. This is the only question I ever keep the same for all my podcasts. So you meet a person who is about to go through everything that you've ever experienced. Every up, every down, every heartache, every turmoil they've gone through. They're about to go through your black hole and back out of it the other end. You're not allowed to tell them anything. All you can do is give them 3 pieces of advice of how to get through it.
Oh. Okay. The world is actually your friend. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely worth it. Mm-hmm. And you'll love the darkness once you're in the light.
I like that. I like that when you like the darkness once you're in the light. I like that one because once you've come out of it, you know how far you never want to go back. I like that. So I'd like to say from the bottom of my heart, I am thankful for this conversation, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of giggles in this one.
Thank you. Yes. Oh, that last question got me all teary too.
You had your tissues ready. As far
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I really do appreciate it. And on that note, people, I say good day, good brew.